Have you ever stopped to think about what is really happening to you? Sometimes we gradually lose ourselves. It's just a change here, another there, you think. But the problem is that when you realize it, you no longer know who you are. You look in the mirror and ask, where is that man I respected? Where did my essence go? And the worst part is that this pain grows silently until it becomes something that consumes you from the inside. Today I want to tell you the story of Tiago. Strong, firm man, but who erased himself trying to please those who never valued him. And the more he gave of himself, the further he distanced himself, until one day he no longer recognized himself. Has this ever happened to you? That feeling of living for others, but inside feeling like you're dying a little each day. If you continue like this, where will this take you? The fear that Tiago felt and maybe the same one you're feeling now, but there is a way out. And in this video, I'm going to show you how he, and you too, can recover your identity before it's too late. Stay with me until the end. This video could be the beginning of your turnaround. Do you still recognize yourself in the man you've become? If you identified with this story, don't wait any longer. Here we talk about how to recover your identity, your value, and not let anyone erase who you really are. Subscribe to the channel now because you don't want to miss what's coming. First, when everything started to change, Tiago was that simple man, but full of life. He woke up early even before the alarm clock went off. He went to the kitchen, made his own coffee, strong, freshly brewed, and put on the songs that marked his youth, Legião, Raul, Zé Ramalho. While the smell of coffee filled the house, he looked out the window and took a deep breath. There, in that morning silence, he felt whole. On the weekends, it was sacred. Soccer with friends on Saturday, barbecue on Sunday, laughter, old jokes, repeated stories. But that always brought new laughs. That was his tribe. The world where he was himself without needing to explain himself. But then she appeared. At first it seemed like a dream. She was sweet, attentive. She looked at him with a sparkle in her eyes and said, "You are so different from other men." Tiago felt valued, as if someone finally saw who he really was. He began to surrender himself. He wanted to see her smile, to please her, to surprise her. He spent the week thinking about what she would like to do, what he could buy for her, how to be the man she deserved. And deep down, he liked that. It was good to love and be loved, right? But that's when the little cracks began, disguised as innocent comments. No shouting, no fighting, just words that came in silently, but left marks. That shirt doesn't suit you, honey. Your friend seems a bit childish, doesn't he bother you a bit? Are you really going to go out with those people again? Tiago listened and thought, it's no big deal, maybe she's right. Better not to argue over something silly. So he gave in. He changed his shirt. He stopped going out. He made a choice. Then another. Until, without realizing it, he stopped being himself. And it was subtle, so subtle that you didn't even notice when you started changing to fit into someone else's world. When he realized it, he wasn't laughing like he used to. He didn't play those songs in the morning anymore. The barbecues, they stopped happening. Football, it was put off until later, until it disappeared, all in the name of harmony, all to avoid friction, to maintain that love, which deep down was already asking him to be someone else. And so, Tiago started to fade away. Not all at once, but little by little, like a candle. That burns slowly until the wick reaches the end. How many times have you stopped being yourself and just to avoid conflict? It's the silent loss of identity. Time passed, and Tiago began to notice something strange. The things that used to fill his heart were no longer fun. That desire to listen to music in the morning, gone. Coffee, which used to be a ritual, became just a hot liquid. The laughter with friends became a memory. And the steady gaze, the one he carried in the mirror, that was fading away. But no one noticed, not her, not his friends, not his family. Because when a man starts to lose himself, often he does it in silence. Tiago didn't scream, he didn't complain, he just kept quiet. It wasn't fear, it was tiredness. Tired of explaining what he felt, and not being understood. Tired of trying to be himself and receiving criticism in return. Tired of rowing alone in a relationship that was slowly turning into a chain, and then he started to tiptoe around his own life. He chose his words carefully. He thought twice before giving his opinion. He swallowed what he wanted to say to avoid another uncomfortable conversation, as if he were walking on eggshells in the house. That should have been his resting place, all in the name of a love that demanded too much and gave too little. Tiago thought he was being patient, that giving in was a gesture of affection, but inside, he was emptying himself. And that's what happens to many men. They don't disappear suddenly. They slowly fade away. Before they realize it, they're living like extras in their own story. How many times have you swallowed the desire to be yourself, just to avoid yet another criticism? When love becomes a prison, Tiago woke up on a random Sunday. The sun was streaming in through the crack in the window. The coffee was ready, but inside, everything seemed cold. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, motionless, and suddenly a question arose, cutting through the silence like a knife. Does she love who I am, or who she wants me to be? That question stuck in his mind. It hammered away all day because deep down Tiago already knew the answer. And it hurt. That affection from the beginning, it turned into demand. That compliment, it turned into disguised criticism, and the relationship that once seemed like a safe haven was now a constant storm, but silent, without shouting, without scandals. It was a type of control that came between the lines, in the ugly faces, in the silences that weighed heavily, in the sweet words spoken with a bitter tone. She wanted a Tiago who spoke less, who had fewer opinions, who was more convenient. But Tiago was a grown man, with history, with life, with scars that he had learned to respect. And in that relationship, he felt he needed to ask permission to even exist. It was then that he understood. That wasn't love, it was prison. Disguised, as care, camouflaged as partnership, and the scariest thing is that he had let it happen little by little for fear of being alone, or worse, because he believed he didn't deserve more than that. Are you in a relationship where you need to apologize for being who you are? Fourth, recovering his own essence. It was on a silent Sunday afternoon that Tiago finally stopped. He sat alone on the porch. The wind blew slowly. The coffee cooled in the cup. And his heart seemed frozen. There, with no one around, no judgments, he finally had the courage to face himself, without masks, without excuses. And for the first time in a long time, he asked himself questions he had been avoiding for years. What do I really like? What makes me feel alive? Who was I before this relationship? The answer came with a huge weight. He had forgotten himself. In an attempt to keep someone close, he had lost himself. And at that moment, with tears in his eyes, Tiago made a decision. He was going to find himself again. It wouldn't be all at once, it wouldn't be easy, but it would be necessary. He started with small steps. He started listening to his music again. He made coffee the way he liked it. He laughed at old jokes. He sent messages to friends he hadn't spoken to in a long time. Simple things, but for him, they were huge. It was like finding an old photo and recognizing that man there, the one who looked at himself in the mirror firmly, the one who spoke confidently, the one who knew who he was. Tiago understood that he didn't need to scream or rebel. He just needed to remember that he had value too, and that no love that requires you to erase yourself can be called true love. Do you still recognize yourself when you look in the mirror? Or do you feel like you've left parts of yourself along the way? Either you go back to being you, or you will continue losing yourself. Tiago understood a hard truth. Loving someone cannot mean stopping loving yourself. He looked back and saw, how many times did he give in, keep quiet, hide? And he realized that if he continued like this, there would be nothing left of him. So he started saying no, not angrily, but firmly. He started talking to his friends again. He started wearing what he wanted again. He started smiling freely again. And he discovered something powerful, The world doesn't fall apart when you take a stand. On the contrary, that's when you start to get back up. After 50, life isn't over. Now is the time when you have clarity. And you know what matters? Peace, respect, freedom. Tiago chose himself, and that's not selfishness. It's emotional survival. If you keep trying to please, who's going to take care of you? If you've come this far, it's because something in this story touched you. Maybe you're also tired of pretending, of hiding, of living in silence. But let me tell you, you're still there.